ขอนำทุกท่านเดินทางกันต่อกับหัวข้อต่อไปใน Startup Thailand กับ Keynote เรื่องของ Creative Business Solution How Startup Ignite Innovation in Corporation and Government. Well, everyone, I'm honored to introduce you guys about our next keynote speaker who joined us on the stage, Mr. Rasmus Teschening, founder and CEO of Creative Business Club. Please welcome him on the stage.
Thank you very much. It's exciting to be here, and I want to tell you a couple of stories about how startups can help governments and companies to innovate. You probably all know the Opera Sydney House, the Sydney House that was built by a Danish architect called Jørgen Utzon. He came to the proposal for the Sydney House for the Opera House in Sydney that was in 1957, and they started building in 1959. He actually never saw it completed because he came in disagreement with the Australian government. So that was a typical example of this, the artist that had a vision for something, and I think his vision was pretty well completed, but at the end of the day, he didn't agree with those that paid, with the money people. That's a sad story that he didn't get to see his house. There's another good story about the Sydney Opera House. That is that in 2008, an American architect called Adam Tucker came to Lego and said, I think you have a good idea if you make something called Lego architecture. You should try and build iconic building, or try to sell buildings in Lego to your customers. And Lego said, we don't think so. We are a company that make toys. Our main audience is actually kids, children, teenagers that play with Lego. So the American architect, he went back to the US and started producing his own little Lego architecture sets. And then Lego noticed how he started buying a bigger car, and finally went to him and said, I think you have a good idea. And now it's one of the most successful new product ranges, new business areas, launched in 2010 by Lego. So this is an example of a creative, an architect, or you could call this a creative startup, going to a corporate, which is in itself creative, you could say, Lego, with 3,000 employees in Denmark alone, and giving them even better ideas, helping the corporate to think outside the box. So this is a small example of what startups can do to ignite innovation and thinking outside the box in corporations. I come from Creative Business Club, and we work with a certain kind of startups. I'm going to explain more what that is. We're talking about the culture and the creative industries. It differs from country to country what we call it, but it's like Cirque du Soleil, it's gaming, it's Disney, it's amusement park, it's all these things. And there's something about these companies that make them apart from others. There's something that sets them apart, and we made actually some studies that show that there's some really significant economic properties that are different of these culture and creative industries. They cover some 16 different subsectors, from gaming, music, fashion, publishing, etc. And of course, there will be different areas where it's difficult to say if it's a creative company. For example, is a football game a creative event? Maybe not, but everything around it, the media, the e-sport, the fashion that's related to it. Also over there you see Ferran Adrià from El Bulli in Spain. Is he creative? Is he an artist? At least we can say that many people these days, when they go to restaurants, sometimes it's because they're hungry. Sometimes it's because they want to be entertained, they want to remember their childhood, there's a choice between going to a restaurant or going to the theater that they in reality are making. So these definition discussions will never end. And then we also have this part called culture. Well, what do we need culture for? I think you should look into the story of Cirque du Soleil. For the first 11 years, it was an arts project supported by the Canadian Arts Foundation. So the first 11 years, it was a non-profit, you could say, and now it is certainly a profitable company. I want to give you another example of how a creative company can help an established industry. I don't know if any of you have been to Scandinavia, but to get from Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark, to Oslo, the capital of Norway, you have several options. You can drive through Sweden, you can fly, you can take the train, you can take the bus. You can also take the ferry. And I've been always surprised when I saw people actually taking this ferry. It goes every evening at 5 o'clock from Copenhagen and you arrive the next morning at 9. So it takes a long time compared to 1 hour of flights. So there must be something else. People are not buying the function getting to Oslo. They must be buying something else than getting to Oslo. And that is maybe something around entertainment. The ferry to Oslo, for a number of years, experienced a decline in passengers. And I could understand that because my parents lived in Oslo for a while, and I took the ferry with my siblings for Christmas up there. And it was a pretty sad story. You got into the ferry, and then we were all excited, and we went into the bar. And in the bar, it was dark and gloomy, and they had a vodka tonic, or gin tonic, and vodka and rum, and the traditional drinks. And there was this Russian band playing Frank Sinatra hits. So it wasn't really a good experience. And that was maybe why the passengers passenger number fell, because people actually thought, I'm going to spend part of my life, it's a decision of how much time are you going to spend on this. So, and they realized that, the ferry, and they contacted a concert hall where I was on the board at that time, called Vega. It's the biggest concert hall and nightclub in Scandinavia, called Vega, with 320,000 visitors for concerts and for the nightclub a year. And they said, can you help us? So this is a transportation company asking entertainment company, help us with the nightclub. And of course, there were some obvious things that you can do. You can change the drinks menu. You can put in a trendy DJ, who of course can't be there all the time because he will go nuts, sailing back and forth. And then I'm going to say something very politically incorrect. I am Scandinavian, so that's expected of me. The lightning of the whole thing. You think that when you have to seduce someone, it has to be dark. It has to be, you go to a nightclub and you have this feeling of Shaka Khan singing Ain't Nobody and everything is dark. But in reality, as they said, and I'm going to quote some of the people from the nightclub that helped this ferry to change things, is that good-looking breasts is actually not an operation, it's a question of good lighting. So you need to place lights correctly and people will look wonderful. You have to place, usually, and this is a trick for all of you, place lights down on the floor, upwards, and everyone will pretty much look good. So this is, let's say, a creative competence, a competence in designing an experience that helps. I hope you also know these studies that show that if you play German-sounding music in the section of wines, where you have mixed all the wines, people will tend to buy German wines or Swiss wines, etc. If you play French music, they will tend to buy more French wines. So there are different ways you can influence people through the experience in buying situations. And here, the nightclub helped a transportation company to get more passengers. And you could ask yourself, at the end of the day, should this transportation company, when they fill out the forms for the Danish Statistical Office, tick transportation, or should they tick entertainment, that they're part of simply the entertainment industry? So this is what they've been doing at the ferry. They've been rappelling at the side of the ferry. They've been doing chocolate festivals, etc. So what kind of economic properties can we take from these startups and bring into the corporate world? Well, first of all, I did a study of 1,500 creative SMEs and 1,500 normal tech SMEs, and we found some differences. First of all, there is something called the cultural and creative industries. People in publishing and music and movies and fashion, they have something in common. They have the same challenges. They have the same needs. This is interesting for policymakers, for those of you that are out there. Also, we have this idea that people who are creative, the artists, they do it because they have something inside that they need to get out. They can't help it. So they could do it for free. If any of you are designers, I'm pretty sure you must have some point in your career, someone has asked you if you couldn't help them design their business cards for free, of course, because it's something that you just like to do. But this is a myth. we found out that the creative companies are just as, or creative startups are just as ambitious in making money. Companies in the cultural and creative industries are usually more international than other companies. How many of you in here have danced Gangnam Style? How many have tried the Gangnam Style? Only one, that can't be true. We're not in Japan. Because I made that mistake once in Japan and said, how many of you dance the Gangnam Style? And they said, Rasmus, you're in Japan. And apparently you don't dance Gangnam Style in Japan. But in the rest of the world, we have danced the Gangnam Style. And that's an example of, even though we don't understand what the beep they're singing about or talking about, we do it. It crosses borders in a pretty amazing way. In fashion, literature, etc. It taps into some unseen river underneath all of us through all times and geography. IPR is a higher part of the value. This belt that I'm wearing, it doesn't become valuable because it's leather and metal. It becomes valuable and they can take the price that they can take because there is some hidden logo in here that says, ooh, this is expensive because it's made by Hugo Boss or something. So, and since the value is symbolic, it's so easy to copy, and that's why IPR is a big issue for the creative. It's a big issue for everyone, but for the creatives, it's a much bigger issue. And so if you're working with creative startups, you want to focus a bit more on that. Business development and financing are a greater challenge. If your value is up here somewhere and not in cows or buildings or machinery, it's going to be difficult to go to the bank and get a loan. So, and also many people think that the creative startups are more risky. We saw a study from the UK that actually during the times of crisis, 2007, 8, 9, 10, there were fewer startups in the creative industries that went bankrupt than in the rest of the economy. That could be because that if you have 60 architects employed, then after the crisis you only have 20 architects. It could also be that they couldn't get bank loans, so they couldn't default on them. They didn't have any bank loans, so they didn't go bankrupt. Business development. Is it because they only learned design and they only learned fashion, whatever, and not business? Or is it because it's really, really difficult sectors? And also here it's interesting for corporates. Is it because these kind of people are better at tapping into where society is going, what will be interesting, what people will be doing? Do they have some kind of special talent for that? I must say, I'm happy I'm not working in fashion. In fashion, you have to predict what people will be wearing a long time from now, and that it can be really, really difficult. So, business development is also usually a greater need for these startups. That combined, these different economic properties, including the very, very important one is the double unknown. Let me just explain that one. If you're a rock band, and you go into the studio, you don't know beforehand how it will sound. And you don't know beforehand how the audience will receive it. Steven Spielberg, when he makes a movie, he cannot know exactly how his next movie will be because he doesn't know exactly how Nicole Kidman will play. By the way, that's why he places Nicole Kidman in it, so that the challenge for the audience becomes lower in whether they should go in and see that movie. So these economic properties that are challenges for the startups actually become advantages when they work with corporations. So what I've been talking about here is this connection between how corporates can somehow, through these startups, connect into some trends, some tendencies, some way people are moving and working in their lives. If you want people to move fast while you're constructing a metro, play marching music. If you want drug addicts to get away from a certain area of a town, play classical music. They don't like that. So there are many ways you can use these tools. And I think I use this example is because I often teach American students creative industries and innovation. And I ask them often, how many of you have seen The Wizard of Oz? And every American have seen The Wizard of Oz. I have not yet come across an American that hasn't seen The Wizard of Oz. It's quite amazing. And these are not older people. These are 22, 23, 24-year-olds. So what is it that makes The Wizard of Oz? Imagine if you were producing milk or cars or some other more generic product, what is it that makes The Wizard of Oz so important that every single American goes in and sees it? And we have some ideas, of course, about the red shoes, the yellow brick road, some iconic, the songs, etc. But there is something that is still to be explored. You probably always have heard this expression that content is king, that it's not what is outside that important, but it's what is inside. And just with the example of the breasts and the lightning, I would like a little experiment with you. Take a good look at these two paintings. One is by a Danish painter I don't expect you to know. It's Christian Hornslet. He made a really interesting art installation once where he bought a whole African village. He went to an African village, gave every person there some money if they would change their name to his name. That's a way of showing what capitalism can do. Over here we have Pete Mondrian, that I hope you know. Take a good look at these two paintings. If these were airlines, who would you fly with? And it's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's pretty obvious that there's something that makes us instinctively, just like how George Bush made decisions, you go straight to your gut and find the solutions. So it's not just content, it's also the surface, the design, the smells, the whole experience around it. I have to wrap up here in 5 minutes. There are ways of doing this. There are ways that cities, regions, and corporations can work sensibly with startups. And not in a here's some money, try and develop your business kind of way, but we have some challenges that we would like you guys to solve. And I think there's a great role for ecosystem builders and for translators to help in this process, help define what are really the challenges, and then help the startups come up with solutions that are workable, that actually fit. And I think in many ways, when startups are out there looking for finance, looking for this business angel or this investment fund, maybe it's better to get a really, really good corporate client or corporate relationship. Many of the startups that participate in Creative Business Cup, they come because they will meet IKEA, they will meet Lego, they will meet H&M, they will meet some of the large corporations in their field and start building relationships with them. And that might be much more valuable than getting some irritating business angels that's going to demand a lot of ownership of their company. I was chairman of this for a couple of years. We came up with 10 policy recommendations I can forward to you. The first one was stimulating innovation and growth by enabling cross-sectoral collaboration. This is EU speak, as you can hear, but it's really about how we have to remove the silos. The car industry are not selling cars. They are not selling getting from home to work and back again. That's not what they're selling. They're selling your identity. They're helping you sell your own identity and the stories you want to tell the world about yourself. So this is that was the first in a series of 10 recommendations that we put forward, that we need to get the creatives, work more closely with you can't say non-creatives, because everyone is, of course, creative, of course, and every successful company has been able to think outside the box. Yes. Then another thing, besides this policy work that I've been doing, I also run the Creative Business Cup. And it looks on surface as a competition, and it is, and we just finished yesterday CBC Thailand when we found a startup that will represent Thailand in the finals in Copenhagen on the 15th and 16th of November, and so have some 59 other countries around the world run their own national competition. They come to Copenhagen and make sure that there are lots of Carlsberg and Tuborg and people that you can network with. Of course, then we will find a winner at the end of the day. We've seen Teddy the Guardian, we've seen Professor Y, how to teach physics through virtual reality and all these. But most importantly, it's the networking that can take place. And also the media attention that we can give the startups, that we can push them forward. So I'm going to move forward here. Yes, so we have actually in CBC created something called Creative Business Solutions, where corporates can come to us and say, and they do, like this dairy producer, the milk producer, they said, could you help us? We have this problem that our employees don't understand where we're going. So we found 200 startups in the food business, not necessarily dairy. We put them on the intranet of this dairy producer, the 5th largest in the world. 1,000 employees started debating which startup best represented their future, which created the biggest debate ever happened on the intranet of that company. And the winner was a Portuguese company producing canned fish, like tuna and sardines in cans. They had been able to differentiate this generic product of fish in cans and make it into something really, really special. So the employees, luckily, thought that this was the most inspirational for the dairy producer. I'm going to move forward here. Yeah, here we see the Portuguese winning their competition. I'm going to move forward here. To make this happen, we're working with partners all around the world. Some of you are interested. Come and see me. I don't like the hit and run, so we don't do anything in any country without having a national partner that will actually be there for you when you participate in a competition, even if you don't win, afterwards also to follow up. So we have partnered up with a number of great people around the world, and that also makes it possible for the startups that participated in CBC Thailand to go to other countries in this network. Yeah, who we work for and what we do. Here at the end, I would like to just show you a short 3-minute video of what you can expect by participating in CBC. You will also see some corporations in there in the background. I see at CBC lots of corporations showing up that have nothing to do with the creative industries. Pernod Ricard came, and I was thinking, we don't have any alcohol other than a lot in my bloodstream. We don't have any alcohol startups. But Pernod Ricard was interested in all the things around it, the marketing, social media, etc. Anyway, I hear here, time's up. Short video, thank you for your attention. To dig into this, we need much more time. Come and see me afterwards. Thank you.
It's amazing.
An experience I will never forget.
This is about the good idea that also creates value.
You're literally taking a blank canvas and saying, I'm going to paint the future.
The Creative Business Cup is helping the creative people become entrepreneurs.
Creative Business Cup supports entrepreneurs in the arts and creative industries across the globe to help them network. I think CBC plays a very important role in that space.
You have a worldwide known reputation that you can also see by all the startups invited from Africa, from Asia.
Being a creative business is very hard for anyone to listen to your story. So this is an excellent moment for me, and I'm very excited and very pleased and grateful to be here.
An entity like Creative Business Cup is a great way to promote that kind of creative and innovative thinking.
The creative industries need this kind of stage to get their pioneers and entrepreneurs up and running.
Thailand, Indonesia, Ukraine, China, Philippines, India, Australia, Costa Rica, Romania, Netherlands, Moldova, Bulgaria, Lithuania, Morocco.
I look forward to the final. I've been involved in the jury. I think there's some really, really good companies that are going to get into that final 5.
Creative Business Cup has the opportunity to connect people in a really wonderful way, whether it's potential investors or the entrepreneurs themselves coming here and finding potential customers amongst the entrepreneurs.
People that have achieved a lot of things are standing next to someone that just has a startup, and that's a push for the young entrepreneurs. Amazing experience.
I come from Saudi Arabia. I don't sell oil. I sell coffee.
Our solution is a plush toy embedded with medical sensors that seamlessly during the play tracks child's body temperature, heart rate, and oxygen level.
We are helping cities to fight the problem of air pollution because it matters.
You may be able to win this time, and even if you don't win, the connections that you have here, the networks that you build, the opportunity to interact with venture and angel funds is amazing.
There was not a bad idea in the whole bunch. I mean, it made the jury process very, very complicated and very, very intense. I think every single person that came to this is going places.
There is this week over 30,000 events happening in 140 countries. There are but 5 that are marquee premier events, and this is one of them.
In completely random order, the 5 finalists.
This is a window to not only the world of tomorrow, but a window to a better world. I feel very humble being here.
Competitions like this actually help airlift the entire entrepreneurship ecosystem.
Thank you to you once again, Mr. Rasmus Teschening. You are absolutely amazing. Thank you. ไม่น่าเชื่อนะคะจากนัก